about it right here. We gon' talk about everything you like. I'ma make it real, real clear. It's Tynee Talks right here. We gon' talk about it right here. I'ma talk about everything you like. I'ma make it real, real clear. Cause it's Tynee Talks. And I'ma talk about it. Yeah, cause it's Tynee Talks. And I'ma talk about it.
Today's show is brought to you by Cutz, located in Mansfield, Texas. That is 801 North Main Street in Mansfield, Texas. Cutz is where you get the master barber experience. They specialize in men's cuts, kids cuts, women cuts, edge ups, braidings, lock retwists, the whole nine. You get the whole shebang when you go to Cutz. So make sure you mention Tynee Talks and get a little percentage off your haircut. All right? Tell them Tynee sent you. And welcome to the Tynee Talks podcast. I am your host, Tynee. This is the podcast that educates and entertains, where you come to laugh and learn. And today we're getting into a topic that has been heavily in the news, which is the C.R.O.W.N Act. Today, joining me in conversation in this wonderful talk, I have the beautiful Leticia Wilson. And let me tell y'all a little bit about Leticia Wilson. Not only is she my soror, she's a phenomenal woman, phenomenally. Leticia is a trailblazing leader in higher education. Her journey as a director of advising initiatives is a testament to the power of intersectionality. We love those words. A third-generation college-educated woman of color, Leticia's experience as an African-American with Cuban and Caribbean roots shaped her unique perspective on equity and inclusion, which they're trying to do away with, as we know. Tune in as she shares her inspiring path, embracing her heritage while navigating challenges as a tall, dark-skinned woman with natural hair, locks to be exact. Get ready to explore with us as we dive deep into the C.R.O.W.N Act and our own experiences with our crown. So without further ado, welcome, Leticia.
Thank you so much, soror, for that introduction and the invitation. Thank you.
You are extremely welcome. It is my honor and pleasure to have you here. I would like my listeners, my talkers out there, to know that Leticia and I met at a state conference for the Texas Association of Black Personnel in Higher Education, and we connected last year as Lock Sisters. And we are still Lock Sisters. I know y'all see this wig. And y'all probably like, oh my God, what are you doing with a wig on your hair? For the people that will be watching this via YouTube. But I had a little health issue going on with my hair that caused me to lose some of my hair and actually lose my locks. It makes me feel very emotional. I don't want to cry. So it makes me feel very emotional to know that I have parted ways with my locks, as you can see back right there, for a limited amount of time, but I will be getting them back once we get my scalp healthy. Leticia, is there anything you want to share before we dive into the talk?
Yeah, I just want to lean into that moment real quick today. I want to lean into that moment that sometimes when our health is doing the ebbs and flows, we have to start all over again. But it doesn't mean it's the end. It just means that we're pausing on purpose so we can regrow our roots.
I receive that. I receive that. I thank you for being a support to me. So again, we met last year at the TAPI conference. We connected as Lock Sisters. And at that day, actually, we decided that we wanted to present the following year, which is this year, 2024. And we wanted to present about the C.R.O.W.N Act. And in my life, God always gives me signs that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing or that it's right. So in the year that it took us to get our presentation together, The Crown Act was just in the news, especially here in Texas. Leticia and I both reside in the state of Texas. And the Crown Act was like front page news, with Daryl George and how he was experiencing getting expelled out of school for his locks, and the Crown Act across the states. The Supreme Court put it in the hands of the states, and some states are approving it, some states are shutting it down, that we can't show up in our natural essence, and how hair grows out of our scalp. And so it was like God was with us on this journey every step of the way. It seemed like every week we were all sharing articles.
Every week, every single week.
Every week we were like, did you see this? Did you see that? And it was like, okay, this is timely. This is timely. So we presented on February 13th, which actually happened to be my birthday. And Leticia, do you want to go into how well received and on time the presentation was?
Ooh, thank you for that, Tynee. It was so on time, because I would like to tell your listeners and your viewers that this happened organically, because we met each other at Taffy, we sat beside each other, we drummed up an organic conversation. We noticed that we had some things in common, right? We talk about the intersecting identities. We were all Black women. We were all women with natural hair. We were all in the higher ed space, rather a community college or a university.
Right.
We all were sorors, a part of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And we all had a deep-seated root to share our journeys.
For sure.
And we wanted to do it in a way where people would be able to receive it. So once we transitioned, even as we built our presentation, it was like a healing. It was like a come together of community, because we're all in different spaces, right? We're not all geographically in the same city within Texas. So when we did get together to put together our presentation, it was almost like a sister circle.
Yes.
It was like a fireside chat. And then we got into business, because before we're sisters with locks, our hair is locked, but our mindset is not. We were still able to just connect with each other monthly, Tynee, right?
Monthly. That's right.
And then the day of our presentation so happened to be Tynee's birthday. And so we ushered in the good spirits. We're all believers. And Tynee set the tone. We got in a circle and prayed. And y'all, people showed up 30 minutes early to be in the seats of our presentation. And we had people from all different generations, from all different stages of hair, rather it's straight, rather it's afro, rather it's textured, different genders, different journeys. And it was like a combination of us talking about not only our hair, but our hair story and his story, and why we want to have this really open conversation, not in a safe space, because I don't believe in safe spaces, but I do believe in brave spaces. So we curated that at the conference, and people were just up giving their testimonies today, right?
Yes.
So good. They came in moving and grooving, because we were giving out chocolates and candies. So people would be open and willing to share their story, because they entrusted us, because we weren't talking to audience members that didn't understand. We were just having a simple dialogue, but also sharing about the Crown Act and encouraging others to embrace their hair journey as well. So it was good.
It was good. You put the cherry on the top, baby, on the ice cream sundae. It was all, when you said all different generations, and everybody was in different parts of their life. And as we shared our stories, we each shared our story. And like you said about the testimony, we asked for audience participation to share their story. And it's so layered, especially in the African-American community, about hair, whether you're male or female, the different things that have been said to various people that were in the room. And to us, based on our hair, based on our identity. Your hair, your crown affects your self-esteem. Your hair, your crown affects how you show up, how you step into the room. Hair, I'm a communications professor as well, and hair is a conversation piece. When I was in graduate school, that was my thesis about how hair connects us through conversation. And the thesis was based on how, depending on how I wear my hair, it would drum up conversation with people. And then I met with different people, white people, Black people, people from the Caribbean, and they were talking about, a lot of times in America, we'll say like Black people are the only ones who experience this or that and the other, but texturism and hair things happen in other communities. In hair, the integumentary system, right? Hair, nails, skin. So colorism is not only a thing that affects the African American community. Colorism happens within the Hispanic community. If you watch Univision television, you'll see the lighter Hispanics dominate their television. They have the blonder hair. Whatever is closest to whiteness, and the same thing happens in the African American community. It also happens in the Asian community. They're bleaching their skin. They're whitening their skin with the whiter the makeup as well. So all of these are taking places. So as we know, this is the place where you come to laugh and learn, to educate and entertain. Have to educate the people out there. When I see it in the comments on the Shade Room or the Neighborhood Talk, we are not the only ones experiencing this thing called colorism. It is happening across the globe because of what? Colonialism.
Can you say it again for the back of the room, Tynee?
Colonialism.
Yes.
You want to break that down for the people, Leticia?
Please write it down. Please write it down. And I think, you know what, when you were talking about colorism and texturisms and all the isms, classism, right? And all of that, even in the state of Texas, how we're all in higher ed and we're dealing with the Senate Bill 17.
Yeah.
That's
it's no longer a bill, it's law now.
Excuse me, law. Yes, thank you for that correction. The law that is criminalizing the work of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And how does that show up? When we show up phenotypically, we can't hide it, who we are. But also, I've had the ability to travel and live in different countries and different cities. And last year I went to Ghana, and that was a transformational experience. I'd only been to 2 countries out of the 54 countries within the continent. And this trip resonated a little different because I've been in Nigeria, but it was 20 years apart, and now I went to Ghana. And one thing that a tour guide told me, which is an African proverb, which says, until the lion tells the story, the hunter will always be the hero. And so that just really spins off of what Tynee said earlier about colonialism. We have to center our own stories by being the person that's telling our stories. So that's why we took it upon ourselves as sisters that have locked hair, that have several similarities, but we also have differences, and bringing in the audience so we will be our own storytellers, that we will center the theoretical framework around Afrocentricity instead of European standards, that we will be able to create that brave space and have conversations about what you can do once you go back, that call to action that we talked about today, that I would love for you to bring out. But we were able to be the center of our own stories. And when I went to Ghana, I also learned something because I was raised as a 3rd generation HBCU grad. That's right. Historical Black College or University. So I honor my power and privilege in that because my grandmother was born in 1928, fair-skinned. And here I am as a 3rd generation attending an HBCU as well. So I lean into that power and privilege, but I also lean into what Tynee was talking about, the brown paper bag syndrome, right? Depending on if you were darker than that paper bag, you could have been treated different ways within our own community and outside of our community. But going back to Ghana, when I went to Ghana, here in the continental United States, we're considered the minoritized population. You are the minority. But baby, When I went to the homeland,
Yes.
anytime I go outside of the US, we are considered, and I say we are considered the global majority. So my neuroplasticity changed from being seen as a minority to then changing my mindset to no, I'm not the minority, I'm the global majority. So Tynee, this spurs a lot. So our presentation just wasn't about hair, but it was about where we are rooted now and how we are going to shift into where we're going.
Oh, I love it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to actually share our presentation. And so we can kind of give the audience a little idea of what was going on with what we had going on.
That's right. We're going to Oh, I love this.
All righty. So are you able to see that?
Absolutely. I can see it.
All right. So for the listeners out there, our presentation was called Carrying Our Crown in the 21st Century Workplace. And it was presented by Dr. Vanessa Ellison, who's one of our Lock sisters. Want to hold space for her today as she is mourning the loss of her sister and also our soror. We want to send you some love and light, Dr. Ellison. It was also presented by myself, Tynee, Leticia, and Keisha Hopkins. And so that's a photo of us in all of our locked glory. Hello.
Yes.
And so I'll start with me. We started the presentation off with our own personal stories. And as you can see in the photo here, for the people who will watch this on YouTube, you see the first day I started my locks into where they were in present day. And I get emotional because 2 weeks after this presentation, I had to cut off my locks due to my health issues that are happening with me. But we won't call them issues because I am fixing the health right now and getting it back healthy. But I was locked for literally 2.5 years. And I always say before I got locked, I had every hairstyle on earth except the Jerry curl, which, funny story, I went to the Scarface concert on Sunday and there was a man looked like to be a Crip, no lie, and he had a Jerry curl, like a fresh dripped out and draped out Jerry curl.
I cannot.
Like he literally looked like he literally went to the Jerry curl salon for this concert, right? So I had every style except that. And the reason why I locked is I wanted to see myself in a different way. I had a fade, I had a perm, short hair, long hair, shoulder length hair, microwave ponytails, all those things. And the style that I chose was the palm roll, comb twist / interlock. I just was kind of going between the two, and which also could have contributed to my breakage and things that were going on. And for the people that will watch this on YouTube, the QR code is there to show you the difference. And this is important because based on my health issues and the breakage I was having, that maybe this way of locking my hair may have been too hard on the strength of my scalp. And so I may be considering sister locks moving forward if I decide to grow my locks back out. And so we centered the conversation on carrying your crown in the 21st century because historically we haven't been able to wear our hair how it naturally grows out of our scalp in the workplace. As you know, they had to create laws, and the Crown Act so far is legal in 24 states. It went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court put it back into the hands of the states. And so 24 states have approved it, including Texas, but Texas has not been honoring it, but that's a whole nother story that we'll talk about later on. And so we talked about these encounters at work because even now that I have lost my locks and I'm wearing this wig that you have seen, that you see me in, people, when I got to work, oh, your hair's so pretty. You look so beautiful. It's the different way that I'm received by non-Black people and Black people when I'm wearing European looking hair. And not because I'm trying to be European, it's because this is what's available, and that's a whole nother story. But the point of the matter is, by non-Black colleagues, they'll say I look pretty in the wigs, as just this week with me wearing this wig, or Black people react different to me. And I say right here, depending on their proximity to whiteness, meaning how they view whiteness as above themselves or better. Saying, thinking that Eurocentric standard of beauty is the best. And so they'll tend to lean towards that being the standard of beauty.
Mhm.
And then Leticia, you want to go ahead and share your story?
Yes, Tynee, thank you for sharing your story. I know I've heard it before, but every time you share it, it hits differently. So I guess I'm the OG of the group. We're supposed to be educating and have laughs. So I've been locked now. My hair has been locked. Even that's a funny story. When I see other people with locks and I'm walking in a grocery store, I'm walking in a store, and I stop and say, "How long have you been locked up?" Immediately, non-Black people clutch their purse and think I'm talking about incarceration. No, I'm talking about hair. And then we go ahead and continue the conversation. So it's just funny. Even the word locks has so many different connotations. So I have been in my lock journey for 22 years. And that picture to your left with the cornfields in the background, because I'm originally from Ohio. And so I started with the fade. I used to go to the barbershop every week and get my hair cut. But then I was like, you know what? I want to grow locks. And this was 22 years ago. So before it was popular on TV, before everybody had a product line out, this was long before that whole revolution. And so before I was locked, similar to Tynee, y'all, I had all the styles, including the Jerry curl, which was Wave Nouveau, by the way, Wave Nouveau. So I had crochet braids. I had Poetic Justice, Janet Jackson, Dookie braids. I had the relaxer, Just For Me. Y'all remember that?
Yes. And Just For Me was not for me. Okay.
It sure wasn't. I had it natural and then had to sit at the kitchen table and get my hair pressed by a straightening comb. I had the Venus Williams braids with the beads on the end. I mean, I had all types. I had cornrows. I had a short bob like Toni Braxton back in the day. I had all of the hairstyles. Do you hear me?
You did it all.
Hairstyles. And I was tired of being a slave to beauticians. You'd make an appointment and you would still be in the beauty shop all day because they would try to fit multiple people. So I'd be under the dryer forever. I would have all different people in my head. And I was like, you know what? I want to be set free from this whole process. I want to have a natural hairstyle that I can maintain. But if I choose to go to a beautician or a loctician, then I can do that. So I have the option of doing both. So I started out because I did go to a HBCU, Wilberforce University in Ohio. We actually had a beauty salon in our dorm on the first floor. So people that wanted to do hair, they had their seat. So I started there in the honors dorm, and I started with the comb twist method. And so that started my journey. But y'all, I had so many encounters at work. Because I've been in higher ed for almost 20 years, I've worked in many different environments, from predominantly white institutions to historically Black colleges and universities. And now I'm in a Hispanic serving institution. It doesn't matter the institution type or the location. Y'all, people gave me every kind of dialogue. So one dialogue is from our own brothers and sisters that share the melanated Black. So I would have some of our own people say, "Ooh, you're so brave. I wish I could do that." Or, "Ooh, girl, I would like to do that, but I like to do too many things to my hair. I like variety." Or, "Are you sure you want to wear your hair like that? Because is it clean?" Or, "Girl, if you are going to get locks, make sure you do the assisted locks, because all that other free form stuff, that looks crazy. So I got all kinds of comments from our own, and even from my own grandmother. Mind you, let's set context. My grandmother, God rest her soul, I love you, Nana. She was born in 1928. And because I started my locks 22 years ago, when I started my lock journey, and some people call it the ugly phase, she said, you're going to get a real good job that way. All them worms in your head. Right? And so I was like, I'm getting this from my own family.
Right.
I'm getting this from my own people. Like, what am I sure that I want to do this? Now let's go to non-Black people in the workplace in particular. I've had people literally take all 5 fingers, come in to actually touch my hair, almost like as if I was a petting zoo. And they would say, oh, it's so soft. Are you really touching my hair?
That's a cardinal sin. The number 1 rule, do not touch a Black woman's hair.
Yes. Why do you feel like you have the agency, the privilege? Your hands have oil and all kinds of things on it. And my locks are like sponges. So baby, back up, beep, beep. What is going on?
Yeah.
And so I've had to, now that I'm more refined, 4 decades, years young, I had to cultivate and curate my response so it would come out that would be stern, but also respectful. Because my crown is a part of my body.
That's right.
So I've had people come in and touch my hair. I've had people say, ooh, do you want to wear your hair up like that? Why don't you wear it back and braided so people don't know that you have locks? I've had people say, ooh, are you really sure you want to show up in an interview with those locks? Maybe do that after. So you might want to put on a wig during the interview. And then afterwards, once you have the job, then show your locks. And then I've had people say, well, you know what? You wear your locks so professional. That's almost like a backwards compliment. What does that mean?
It's just like when they say, oh, you're pretty for a dark-skinned girl. Like,
right. Like, I don't understand. And so I've had so many others. I wish we can write a book. Maybe that's our next step today.
That's our next step. That's literally it. We got to write a story.
Write a book. And because my hair, I've had my locks for over 22 years. I've had so many stories, but that's just to name a few. But I have palm rolled locks. I have actually dyed my locks. That's a picture. I was in a hair magazine almost over a decade ago. I've done so many different styles, from pipe cleaner curls with my locks. I've done braids. I've done all kinds of beautiful styles with my locks. And I am so happy that I still have my locks. And if I choose to do something different, that's okay, because it's my crown.
Because it's your crown. Thank you so much, Leticia, for sharing that your story again. Like you said, I love hearing your story. Like you say, you enjoy hearing mine. And something that you just said, well, there were a few things that stood out. Number 1, when we talk about your grandmother being born in 1928, they were just born in a different time where conformity was the thing. It was like you had to change your hair. My mother said it to me when I had natural hair. After I had my son, you're going to have to put a perm in that if you want to get a job. And there I was, a college educated woman with a master's degree, but yet even with the education that we have, it's like, but what about your hair though? As if your hair affects what's inside of your brain. And it doesn't. And then to the point where you said they just enter your hair with all 5 fingers and all the different oils, and our hair is so sensitive. But the key thing that you said is that your crown is part of your body. So it's just like if you're a person wants to just go in and grope you, on your chest or something. You just can't grope or touch someone's hair. It's part of their body. Your hair is not separate from your body. It is your body. And just also touching your hair, the transference of energy is very real. Especially in the African American community, we say, be careful who you let in your head. Be careful who you let pray over you or touch your head. The mind, the head, the crown. It's so important. It levels us. It centers us. The head tells the rest of the body what to do.
That point.
And so it's very imperative that we don't let anybody touch it, or that people don't feel like they have the liberty to just violate you and touch your body or your hair as if it's not a part of your whole self.
Herself.
So
Absolutely.
I just thought that that was important to touch on. I'm going to skip through some of the slides and come here. A person that also inspired us in this story was Isis Brantley, who resides here in the Dallas, Texas area where I reside. And she is an ancestral natural hairstylist and activist. She's been on the front lines for many, many years. And she was actually helping the young man I mentioned earlier, Daryl George, as he was fighting to show up as himself at school. She started braiding hair in 1979, 79, 80. She's also Erykah Badu's braider. So when you see Erykah Badu with the long, long braids or the beautiful braids, Miss Isis is doing that. She was arrested in 1997 at her hair salon for braiding hair without a license. At the time, there wasn't a law about braiding hair in cosmetology. Braiding was added to barber school in 2015, House Bill 2717 deregulated hair braiding in Texas. Isis can now braid and teach, and she also has a product line. She's very important to what we do, how we are able to show up, and she fights for us to be able to show up as ourselves. Is there anything you want to share about Miss Isis, Leticia?
No, actually, during our presentation, it was the first time that I've honestly heard about Isis Brantley. And so while we were doing this work together as sisters that carry the same hairstyle, I was being educated about how this movement, how this revolution even started. So
I love that. And then, we also talked about men. There was a man in our presentation that even shared his story. And it's so apropos. This is what I mean, Leticia, when I be like, God is just, he directs me in the conversations to have, because that young man shared his story about going to, a predominantly white institution. And as he was graduating, looking for a job, or even before he, went off to school, he felt like in order to fit in, he needed to, cut his hair and get a fade. And now he has locks in a professional space working at the institution where he graduated from. But most recently, the NASA recent employees shared their headshots. And a young man went viral for sharing his his headshot, wearing locks, working for NASA. And it was so revolutionary because we've been told in so many spaces, you can't wear your hair like that if you want to do X, Y, and Z, if you want to dot, dot, dot. And so we've come a long way. As much steps as we take back, we keep moving forward. And so we love to see that an astronaut can wear his hair in locks, or a scientist, or a doctor, or a lawyer, a teacher, all these spaces where traditionally they had told us you can't wear your hair like that. Is there anything you want to share about that? And did you see that, Leticia?
oh, yes, I did. I saw it all over LinkedIn. And it was so interesting because as I saw that on social media and on some of the mainstream media outlets, all of us were reposting, resharing, sharing comments in the chat. And so it was almost like a community within a community, and people that had no idea about why that was so important in a STEM field. Being a Black man, and a Black young man that's not close to retirement, but at the beginning of his journey, sharing his professional headshot in locks,
Yes.
all those different pieces. Yes,
Oh,
yes, and
amazing.
yes.
Yes and yes. And that's the thing when you say with the community within a community, because sometimes other communities don't know the fight that we have to take. They'll say that, oh, Black girls, you're wearing weave, but we don't wear weave because we're trying to assimilate. we wear weave because it's a protective style. We're able to do a lot of versatile things, color it, dye it, manipulate it, because the hair is so sensitive and it can break, especially African American hair is very delicate, even with locks or any type of style. And so they don't understand that we had to wear the weaves. We were basically forced to perm our hair or have a straightened look or a curly look. And also the beauty side of it, just trying to live up to the standard of a European beauty. And so not only did it affect women, it also affected men, and it still does. So for the listeners out there, you probably keep hearing us say the Crown Act, the Crown Act, the Crown Act. What does it mean? It means creating a respectful and open world for natural hair, creating a respectful and open world for natural hair, emphasis on respectful. So it is. And when Leticia said that she's refined how she reacts, because she shouldn't have, I don't want to say she shouldn't have to, but there's a way that we should all hold space for each other, to treat each other with respect, and just putting your hand in someone's hair or touching them is not respectful. So we're going to create a respectful and open world for natural hair, to say, hey, your hair may not look like mine, but I'm going to respect it. Your hair may not look like mine, but I'm not going to make a joke about it. We've been the brunt of jokes for our hair, whether it's in locks or in our afro, saying it looks like a Brillo pad. Or I remember Chesalee saying, when she had locks, a white girl saying, oh, that looks like a Cheeto. So things like that. So just creating a respectful and open world, to say, hey, there's differences and you may not like it. It may be foreign to you, but we're just going to hold a respectful space for it.
And I just want to add to that, Tynee, about natural hair. While we're talking about locks in our presentation, natural hair is such a wide, broad umbrella. Natural hair, how you see in the picture, it could be palm rolled locks, sister locks. It could be an afro. It could be hair without chemicals that's in cornrows. It could be hair that has a twist out, which is a type of style. So natural hair is not just one type of hairstyle. It encompasses all different hair varieties that's without chemicals. And so that's the space that we want to create, is the exposure to the Crown Act, but also letting other people that may not share the same type of hair texture know about how we should be treated as just human beings in the workplace and outside of the workplace.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. Oh, that's perfect. And just to touch base on what Leticia said, her grandmother said, you're going to wear your hair like that. How will you get a job? Or the NASA young man showing that, yes, I can get a job with my locks. But 54% of Black women are more feel that they should have to wear straight hair to a job interview. So again, we feel that way because we were molded into feeling that way. Black women's hair is 2 to 5 times more likely to be seen as unprofessional. So what this means is, I always use the example, you might see a young lady that is non-Black with purple hair, and she's embraced and told how cool it looks. But that same Black woman can wear purple hair or green hair, and then it's considered unprofessional or ghetto. So we want to just give a shout out to Dove and LinkedIn, as they are, understanding and embracing that our hair, how it grows out of our scalp, is not unprofessional. We talked about Daryl George. Daryl George, here in the state of Texas, was a student at Barber Hill ISD. ISD means Independent School District. And his superintendent took out a full page ad in the Houston Chronicle saying that being American requires conformity. Well, not in my world. Being American means you can show up how you want, because we are the melting pot. Daryl George was suspended from his high school for wearing locks. He sued the school district, and most recently we find out that he lost on a technicality. So they did not honor the Crown Act, saying that he can wear locks, but they said that the length of his locks was the reason for his violation, because young men shouldn't wear their locks to their shoulders. However, he was wearing his locks pinned up. So there is still a fight to be had. As we know, people will go out of their way not to follow the law. And this is Mr. Daryl George here. You can also Google him and look him up to learn more about his case. So our call to action to you all is to look at your employer's policy when it comes to hair, and how you're able to see if they're honoring it, to see if your state is one of the states that passed the C.R.O.W.N Act, to see if your state is still, in the midst of voting, to see if it should be passed, and the different things that you can do to advocate to be able to show up in your space as your beautiful, authentic, natural self, and where you can carry your crown in any room with the highest regard.
Absolutely, Tynee. Absolutely. And that call to action is just not to say something and make it fluffy. Mm-hmm. We want you to be a part of the change that you want to see in your workplace. So that may take a visit to your HR department to ask if you can't look it up in your policy manual, or if you can't find it. So asking intentional questions that may start with your direct supervisor and having that conversation with them first. But if they don't know, then go directly to HR, because we as a people, as melanated people, oftentimes things go into law because we don't know what's happening. So we have to keep our ear to the ground and stay up to date with not only what's happening nationally, but what's happening in the spaces that we occupy. So we can make sure that if it's leaning towards a side that's being discriminatory, that we can be ahead of. We call it in communications getting ahead of the story. So that means that we have to be entrenched in what's happening locally, but also nationally, and being a part of the change that we want to see. So Tynee, thank you for giving that call to action. And I really want people to take heart to that, because you have the ability to be a change agent. And this is how.
And this is how. And just to touch on that, I often see, I'm often on social media, and I often see people arguing in the comments saying, well, y'all didn't vote. Again, even though we are the majority globally, we are the minority here in the United States. And even in all 50 states, we're not heavy populated everywhere. Black people tend to be concentrated in certain states and in certain areas. So not only does it take our vote, we're often throwing blame on each other. We need those allies out there. So ask your colleagues also to fight on your behalf, to speak up for you, because we could vote all day. But if our allies or our comrades or our colleagues don't also advocate for it, then these laws will get passed. So it's not just on us. The call to action is for everybody. It is not just on us. Okay. Absolutely. So as Leticia said, have those conversations. And if you don't even do anything else, try one day showing up as you. Try one day showing up. If you've been scared, or you've heard those conversations within your family of why you wearing your hair like that, or you're unpretty, or any of those negative things, try. A form of resistance is to show up as your authentic self.
And call it out when it happens. Now, there's times when we say in the racial justice space that there's a time to call in and there's a time to call out. So calling in people may be your co-conspirators, your advocates, your allies, so that we can all band together and do the work together. That's when you call in. You call out when somebody leans in to touch somebody's natural hair because that's a part of their body. You call out when you see an injustice happening to somebody or yourself. You call out when there's a policy that doesn't give equity and inclusion at the workplace. So there's a time to call in people and there's a time to call out. But you have the ability to be that change agent. So take ownership. Please consider this call to action as a way that you can be a part of the movement, that you can be a part of changing the landscape for the future generations, just like that young man has his professional picture at NASA that's going global, that's because we are trailing the way for the next generation to come through.
Oh, I love it. Leticia, thank you.
So good.
So
it's
good.
always good to see you, Tynee. I'm
Always.
so grateful to be on your podcast, and also so grateful to just highlight and spotlight this Crown Act, because this is about us. Like
That's right.
FUBU, for us, by us.
Period. As they
Don't let me take off my jacket, okay? Don't let me take off my jacket.
Leticia, in true Tynee Talks fashion, this is your chance to give a shout out. So who do you want to give a shout out to as we close out?
Oh my goodness. So talking about legacy, I am an auntie first. So I want to give a shout out to my beautiful niece, Dacia. And this is why I wanted to give this presentation, because she is 4 years old and I want her to embrace the way her hair naturally comes out of her scalp, no matter what space she occupies. So Dacia, auntie loves you. To my mother and father. Yes, baby girl. And also to my parents, because they raised me and they're going to celebrate 44 years of marriage. And I love the way that they have parented me. Because of them, I get to stand. And also my brother, who's a single father, Demetrius Wilson, I love you. And to all my friends and family and my sorority sisters globally, I love you. Love you, love you. And I'm so grateful to you, Tynee, and to all of our co-prisoners that couldn't be here today, but they're here with us in spirit. I am grateful for you, listeners, for listening to us in this 60-minute conversation. And I am just humbly grateful to be standing 10 toes down on this side of the ground, allowing my dash to dance. And I say dash dance because on our tombstone is the day that we were born and the day that we died. But in between is that dash. And baby, I am making it dance.
Baby, I'm dashing.
So because of trailblazers like Madam C.J. Walker, like Isis Brantley, like all others that have started the Crown Act and are trying to get them incorporated outside of the 24 states, I thank you for doing the work. And for taking a hold of the challenge and the call to action. So that's who I want to give gratitude to, Tynee. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to give a shout out to all those who are on the front lines trying to do something about our hair, from the Miel Organics to the Shea Moisture, Beyonce Sacred, Taraji P. Henson, Gabrielle Union, our grandmothers who were in the kitchen on the hot stove with the pressing iron. My grandmother Audrey, my mother Beverly, who did my hair in all the styles and the braids, my sister who would do my hair, my childhood hairdresser Brunette, I love you so much. My godmother Arlene, who made sure I got my hair done every week. And all of those who have kept my crown. Charmaine, who's now doing my hair. This Is It Salon. Thomasina. My sister Monica, who used to be a hairdresser. Just all of those who have cared for my crown throughout the years. And to all the young ladies out there who are still, carrying their crowns on the days when our hair want to be unruly, when we feel unworthy. This episode is dedicated to you. Carry that crown with pride and joy, and know that you are beautifully and wonderfully made in the image of God. This is the Tynee Talks podcast, the podcast that educates and entertains, the podcast where you come to laugh and, of course, learn.